before I start to explain a little bit the wheel of restoration with you, I want to thank Wayne for organizing all this. I'm really happy that you did. Not only about an issue that really goes to the heart of what I am doing, but also because you are able to ask the right questions. So it's not so often that I'm at a workshop or a panel or a conference in which exactly the right questions are on the table. So thank you so much for that. And also the title of this panel, I think I haven't it is there, but the limits and possibilities of legal frameworks with regard to historic wrongs or something like that. It's really sort of summary of what I have been doing for the last 10, 15 years. So at least what I hoped to be doing, because sometimes you are a director of research and you cannot do anything anymore. So thank you for that. What I want to do now is explain a little bit this model. Now, why did I develop a model? Perhaps because I was thinking that discussions about transitional justice or about restitution or about reparations were suffering from many good intentions and not so much theory, not so much vision. And people have all kinds of nice ideas. Sometimes they are fit well together, sometimes they are in contradiction with each other. And I didn't like the way people were putting forward programs without a clear vision on the limitations and possibilities of each approach. So that's why once upon a time I had a conference, I think in Germany, there were only theologians and a couple of historians, one sociologist and a lawyer, and the lawyer was me. And these people from theology were only talking reconciliation. And it was amazing, and then I had to travel by train back to Amsterdam, and I had much time. And I was just inspired, I think, because of all these theologians. And that's how I developed the model in the train. So, and then I was thinking, well, I now have this model. Now for years to come, I know what I'm doing. Every talk, I will do the wheel of restoration. So I will do it now as well. It's a casual presentation. What is the wheel all about? The wheel is saying it has presuppositions. So maybe you do not agree with these presuppositions and we can discuss about it, but the wheel is a little bit authoritarian because it presupposes certain things. Now, one of the presuppositions is that there are three basic ways to address historic wrongs. They are basic ways at an individual level, so in your personal life, for example, but it is also true for collective levels, for example, the level of a state or the level of a community. Those three basic ways are forgetting. Then you are trying just to forget the wrong of the past and try to go on, try to move on, as David Cameron just said in Jamaica a few weeks ago. Or you try, that is one approach, just move on and deny, ignore, repress, or forget about what happened in the past. And I would say this is a strong approach, it is a very common approach, and it is worldwide. It is a very popular one. Maybe not the best one, but at least it is, you see it a lot. Then you have remembering as an approach. That is sort of the opposite approach. What are you doing when you're trying to remember the unjust past? Then you are getting the past into the present, and that also means, as an approach, that you are trying to do something about it. So it has a certain legal meaning as well, because, for example, a claim of restitution can only be made when you are really honestly trying to reconstruct what has happened in the past. So remembering and restitution claims are very closely connected. I will come back to that later. And then the last approach, the third one, is reconciliation. And this is maybe the most complex, maybe also most interesting approach, because in this approach, one tries to repair the past because one wants to, let's say, envision, achieve a future common to everyone. So it is, you are answering the past with a sort of vision towards a common future. So it is not only about the past reconciliation, that is at least in the viewpoint of the model, but it is as much about the future, and even the future is more important, that is how the model sees it, than the past in the sense that you are repairing the past in order to achieve a better future. So the future is the top priority. Well, what the model is also saying is that each and every approach, each of these three approaches is not perfect. They are all suffering from certain flaws, from certain limitations. You always do it wrong, so to say. You have to choose between these three approaches. You can try to do them all at once, but you will run into difficulties because forgetting and remembering at the same time is difficult, and also reconciliation and remembering are not completely the same. So because of the fact that every approach suffers from some problems, the model says, and that is the activist side of this wheel, it is good to change approach from time to time. So the wheel claims that it is necessary from time to time that you move from one approach to another approach. For example, from an attitude of forgetting to an attitude of remembering, or from remembering to reconciliation, or from an approach of reconciliation towards forgetting. So it is necessary from time to time to change. Now, I presented this model earlier, and one of the replies I've got so far is that one says, well, the model is a sequential model. It says there is only one approach, let's say, present at the same time. Well, in reality, that's not true. All approaches are on the table all the time. Of course, that is also true, but what the model says, there is one approach dominant in a certain context at a certain time. And the dominant approach is the approach I am interested in, and when is a certain approach dominant at a collective level? When the law, there is where the legal frameworks are coming in, when a legal framework tries, for example, to keep the past in the past, by statutes of limitation, by amnesty legislation, etc., then you are in the paradigm of forgetting, even if at the same time there are all kinds of groups and organizations trying to ask attention or pointing to the wrongs of the past. But then the legal framework ensures that still the paradigm of forgetting, as I would call it, is the dominant one. And what the activists are trying to achieve is to move the model forward towards remembering. But that can only be achieved when there will be a change in the political way the past is considered, for example, by a formal apology or a change of the law or a legal court case in which suddenly a judge says or construes a liability somehow for the wrongs of the past. Well, I only have 4 slides, so when I'm at the 4th slide, you are sure that I'm almost ready. This is another way, it's still the same wheel, but here the objectives are eliminated. What I'm saying in this slide is that within each approach, another objective is prioritized. So what you are trying to achieve is different in each approach. For example, when the dominant approach is forgetting, so let's say denying, or in publicly denying, or somehow repressing the past, then the prime objective you want to achieve with that policy is order. So that legal certainty, so to speak. And the second best objective is peace. And the last, the third objective, that is what you also could achieve, is neglected. So what is the third objective in the list? Justice. Here is neglected in the paradigm of forgetting. Now, why that is the case is clear. When you ignore the past, you will not do justice to the past. So then you somehow ignore the objective of achieving justice with regard to the past. And this is a basic flaw of forgetting, that you do not try to achieve or do not try to achieve justice. And that's also why the wheel has to move towards justice. That is the normative idea, that after a while you should be trying to go to another way of dealing with the past. And the normative sequence of the different approaches is clockwise, because justice is neglected here in a framework of forgetting. That means that in the next dominant approach, justice should be the top priority, because that is where people are really looking for at that moment. What you see in practice is that, and that especially, for example, in this discussion about slavery, or you should say enslavement reparations, is that, for example, the British government and maybe also the Dutch government are trying to move from if they are willing to move, they do not want to move to justice. They only want to move perhaps to reconciliation. They want to, for example, they regret the wrong of the past. There's statements of regret. So not a formal apology, because that is legal, that is in the framework it's here. No, they want to regret the past and then immediately talk about peace and reconciliation, but not about justice. And the model says that is not the good direction, because in order to overcome the flaws of forgetting, you should pass through a moment of justice. You cannot, there is no shortcut direct from forgetting to reconciliation. You should pass through justice. Now, also the justice paradigm is one-sided in a certain sense, because justice is the top priority, order is the second priority, but peace is neglected somehow. Because in a justice situation, think of a court case, litigation, it is a confrontation between parties. It is a fight. So, and that is what you want. But then you cannot, it is not so much about peace. It is about justice, undoing of the, there are radical propositions. The past should be undone. That was where you were referring to. What restitution means legally, traditionally, is undoing of the injustice of the past. That is very radical. That is retroactive justice. That is not very nice and friendly and peaceful. That is really something. So that's why peace is somehow neglected. And thus after a period of justice, where people are longing for is reconciliation. They want to reprioritize and say, well, no, now we will enter a phase in which peace will be the dominant approach. And that is about, and then justice is then the second priority. But in the wheel, necessarily, there is also always one objective that suffers. And in the reconciliation part, it is order. Why is that? Because I think when you are dealing with the past, in order to achieve a better future, there is so much on the table that the present is heavily burdened with all those issues. So the present, the interests of the present are suffering from all the fuss about the past and the future. And that's why after a while people get tired of reconciliation and they are longing for forgetting. At least that is what I suppose. Because it's for me difficult to find cases, but maybe you can help me, in which this is a problem. So the transition from peace to reconciliation to forgetting. Okay, it is how much time? Yeah, okay, now I try to close. Present, past, future. This is about time frames. So in each approach, one time frame is dominant. For example, when you are trying to forget the past, the present is the dominant time frame and the past is neglected. In the next phase, justice, the past is the dominant time frame and the future is neglected. And in the reconciliation frame, the future is the dominant time frame and the present is neglected, and that's also why there is this sequence. So I will not go into that because I'm running out of time. I already have run out of time. Yeah. Okay, only one remark about the law. Legally, the struggle, for example, in the CARICOM claim, it is about trying to demolish legal instruments, legal ways to keep the past in the past, thus attacking statutes of limitation, etc. But also by legal arguments. So you need legal arguments to show that it is necessary to counter legal principles that are trying to keep the past in the past. And one important argument is countering the argument that it has been legal at the time. For example, with regard to enslavement, the British government is saying, well, it has been legal at the time, so we cannot help to do, and we cannot do anything about it. That is, in my opinion, not a very strong argument, because legality can suffer so much from legal injustice in the past that it is necessary to transcend the principle of non-retroactivity of laws, because in order to strengthen the rule of law, so the rule of law itself, sometimes it is necessary to undo legal injustice in the past, because otherwise the rule of law itself is no longer understood as just. Okay, I leave it there because I really have no time anymore. Reparations, then, my last slide. In a situation of forgetting, what you need is, from an activist point of view, is finding a way of access to the law in order to reach a situation in which you can face the past. And one way to do that is to try to enforce governments to offer a formal apology, for example. That's what is also happening. And at the end of the day, people ask for reparations, and that's also one topic of this conference. And I would say, should reparations be forward-looking, or should they be backward-looking, or both at the same time, etc.? That is a whole debate. In my opinion, you should always try to have this connection with the past. So there should be a backward-looking aspect always in every kind of reparations you are trying to call for, because otherwise you are not talking about repairing injustice in the past anymore. Then it's just social policy and redistribution in order to achieve more equality, for example. Now, what kind of reparations are relevant? Not only, I think, material reparations, and it's not only about money, it is also about reparation of legal denial. I think that's very important, just to have access to the law. Besides results is already a way of reparation. It is about reparation of the rule of law itself. When you state that the legal injustice of the past is illegal, it can be experienced as a reparation of the rule of law itself. It will be more inclusive after such a statement, such a strong statement. It is about a reparation of history, because the access to the way history is taught in schools can change. It is about reparation of the dialogue we have, because when you are in this framework, the powerful are suddenly at the defensive side. They have to defend what they have done. They are no longer the dominant one in the dialogue. And last but not least, and then I'm really finished, it's about restitution, especially of cultural objects. Why? Because I think the restitution of cultural objects are tangible, it's material, but the restitution of a cultural object transcends in many ways and in many directions the material values involved and are much more meaningful than only material, but they still have this tangible aspect to it. Thank you.